Welcome back. Chapter 6, Section 2. Here's the review for that. First of all, we had several properties of parallelograms that we have to remember. I'll go through them very quickly for you. If a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then its opposite sides are congruent. Left and right are congruent, top and bottom are congruent. Not necessarily to each other. So these would be congruent, these would be congruent, but not necessarily these. Just opposite sides. Next, the opposite angles are congruent. Next, if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, its consecutive angles are supplementary. Remember, supplementary, it means they add up to 180. So that means the angles that are next to each other add up to 180. Next, if it has one right angle, then it has 4 right angles. And that goes along with the fact that the consecutive angles are supplementary, because remember that means the angles that are next to each other add up to 180. So if one of them's 90, the next one has to be 90, so they add up to 180. The next one has to be 90, so they add up to 180, and so forth. And the last two, its diagonals bisect each other, and each diagonal separates the parallelogram into 2 congruent triangles. Now, keeping all of that in mind, I want you to, 1, let yourself know, hey, if you don't know these, you know what you got to work on, you know what you got to memorize. And 2, try and solve these 5 questions. Press play when you think you have them answered. Okay, so first up, the measure of angle C. Well, if angle A is 100 degrees, then angle C, since they are opposite angles, and we know opposite angles are congruent, we know this has to be 100 degrees as well. AB. Well, AB is opposite 13, and remember, opposite sides are congruent in a parallelogram. So if this is 13, this is 13. AD. Well, again, AD is opposite from this side. Opposite sides are congruent, so if that's 17, this is 17. Next, DB. Well, remember, the diagonals in a parallelogram bisect each other. So, basically, this diagonal bisected DB entirely. From D to X, I'm telling you that's 12. That means from X to B, that's also 12, but that's not what the question asks. The question wants DB. Well, DB is going to be 12 plus 12, which is 24. And the last one, the measure of angle D. Remember, consecutive angles in a parallelogram, they're supplementary. That means the angle A plus angle D, they must add up to 180 degrees. So if this is 100, this must be 80. And if we wanted to continue with that, these have to be supplementary as well. 80 plus 100, that checks. These have to be supplementary, so if this is 100, that makes this 80. And these have to be supplementary, and 180 add up to 180, so it checks. If you know that, you should be in pretty good shape for Chapter 6, Section 2.